He mocked me as he signed the divorce papers, thinking he had stolen everything my dad left me. But when the judge read the will out loud, his smirk disappeared. Before you watch this powerful story of revenge and resilience, make sure to like this video, share with someone who needs inspiration. Subscribe to our channel for more soul-stirring stories like this one. The courtroom smelled of cold air and fresh paper. I sat stiffly beside my attorney, hands clenched in my lap, as my soon-to-be ex-husband, Brent Foster, leaned back in his chair like he was on a golf retreat instead of a divorce hearing. His tailored navy suit looked straight off a GQ cover, and that smug smirk on his face, God, I used to fall for that. He thought he was walking away the victor. He thought he had drained me dry and was about to be rewarded with the house, the car, and the last thread of pride I had left. Brent believed he knew everything about me, including how much my father left me when he passed away. What he didn't know could knock the wind out of him, and it would. Soon. 3 years ago, if someone had told me I would be here, I would have laughed. Brent swept me off my feet at a downtown Nashville fundraiser for the school district. I was teaching 6th grade English and he was a rising star at a private equity firm. Confident, charming, and eager to spoil me. I was sure I was living a dream. My friends were envious. My father warned me to take things slow, but I had already fallen hard. Within 5 months, Brent proposed at a vineyard in Sonoma. A diamond the size of a skittle sparkled on my hand. I said yes, believing fairy tales were real. The red flags were there, I just didn't know how to read them. He called my work adorable and constantly downplayed my efforts. When I told him one of my students won a state writing award, he patted my head like I was a pet. Ah, that's cute, babe. I closed a 6-figure deal today. We're both changing lives, he would say with that cocky grin. After marriage, things changed fast. He threw dinner parties for his colleagues and introduced me with phrases like, "This is my wife, Leah. She teaches kids how to rhyme and color inside the lines." I laughed along at first. I stopped laughing when I realized it wasn't a joke to him. He didn't just belittle my work, he disrespected my father's memory. My dad, Harold Parker, was a retired army mechanic who raised me solo after mom passed. He wasn't rich, but he was rock solid. Brent thought people like dad were beneath him. "It's cute that your dad worked with his hands," he once said. "Mine built empires." My father died the summer after Brent and I married. I was still grieving when Brent handed me stacks of papers to sign for our future together. "Mortgage stuff," he said. "Legal stuff. Joint account forms, boring but necessary." I signed them all. Now I knew better. Brent leaned forward, flashing his Rolex as he signed the divorce agreement like it was an autograph. "No hard feelings, babe," he whispered. "You'll land on your feet." I said nothing, because I knew something Brent didn't. And when the judge opened my father's sealed last will and testament, Brent Foster's empire was about to collapse. The moment Judge Ellison broke the seal on my father's will, the room hushed like someone had hit mute. Brent, still smug and relaxed, didn't even flinch. His lawyers had already painted me as a soft-spoken teacher from a modest background, someone who will be grateful for a tidy little settlement and would go quietly. "Before we proceed with the division of assets," Judge Ellison said, flipping through the document, "there is a matter of Ms. Leah Foster's inheritance that needs to be reviewed." Brent's brows barely twitched, but I saw his attorney shift in her seat. "You never told me there was an inheritance," Brent whispered through clenched teeth. I tilted my head, meeting his gaze evenly. "You never asked." 3 weeks ago, I had discovered the truth. It started with a call from a woman named Donna Graves, a probate attorney from my hometown in Kentucky. She has been trying to reach me for months, but I changed my number after Brent and I moved into our Nashville home. Your father left you something that needs urgent attention, she said. I didn't expect much. Maybe a few savings bonds or his old truck. But what Donna revealed left me speechless. Your father owned 46 acres of woodland along the river, she explained. He bought it in cash back in the 90s. At the time, it was cheap land nobody wanted. But 2 years ago, a developer discovered lithium deposits under the soil. Your dad never sold, despite being offered millions. Millions? I stammered. Donna nodded. There's more. Before he passed, he set up a trust fund in your name. He didn't want anyone, not even a future spouse, to know until you turn 30 or if you never get married, whichever came first. I had just turned 30. The trust held investments he made slowly over decades. Quietly, cautiously. My father, an army vet and mechanic with grease-stained hands, had invested smarter than most Wall Street guys. The account was worth just over $2.3 million. I never suspected, and Brent never had a clue. Back in the courtroom, the judge continued. Miss Foster's father, Harold Parker, placed the land and the trust into a legal structure that ensures it remains her separate property. None of it is subject to division. Brent finally blinked. Wait, what? Judge Ellison looked over his glasses. Is there something unclear about that, Mr. Foster? Brent's lawyer leaned in, whispering furiously. Brent looked at me like he didn't recognize the woman across from him. You lied to me, he hissed. No, I said calmly. You just never saw me. For 3 years, he thought I was the naive teacher clinging to his wealth. Now the roles had flipped, and he was realizing the woman he underestimated might just be holding all the cards. And I wasn't finished yet. Brent sat frozen, his mouth slightly open as if his brain couldn't compute what he had just heard. His attorney, a wiry woman named Carla Bishop, kept whispering urgent legal jargon into his ear. But he wasn't listening anymore. His eyes were on me, darting between disbelief and growing rage. I sat still, calm, letting the silence work in my favor. After years of being talked over, dismissed, and made to feel like a footnote in Brent's big shot life, it felt almost poetic to watch him squirm in front of a judge. Ms. Foster, Judge Ellison said, can you confirm that you were unaware of the full value of your father's estate until recently? I nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I received notification about the trust and the property shortly after Mr. Foster requested the divorce. Brent scoffed loudly, unable to contain himself. Oh, come on, Leah. Don't pretend you didn't plan this. You're telling me you just happened to find out you were a millionaire the same month I filed? Convenient. The judge gave him a sharp look. Mr. Foster, if you interrupt again, I'll hold you in contempt. Do I make myself clear? Brent shut his mouth but glared at me like I had personally betrayed him. The irony, of course, was almost laughable. You see, what Brent never knew, and what I had finally begun to understand, was that my father saw this coming. He never trusted Brent. Even at our wedding, he pulled me aside and said, "Sweetheart, be smart with your heart, and even smarter with your signature." I didn't listen then. I was too in love, too blinded by Brent's charm, his ambition, his promises. I signed whatever he asked, convinced we were building a future together. But what we were really building was a trap, and I was the one inside it. For the last year of our marriage, I noticed Brent coming home later and later. The perfume on his shirts that wasn't mine. The way he flinched if I touched his phone. And the one call I overheard that shattered everything. "I've got her right where I want her," he had said to someone named Devin. "She's clueless. When the divorce goes through, I'll keep the house, the stocks, everything. That land her daddy left her? Already locked that up as mortgage collateral. She doesn't even know what she signed." I didn't confront him that night. I smiled, kissed him goodnight, and then quietly started gathering every document I could find. Tax records, deeds, bank statements. I went through our entire financial history with a fine-toothed comb, and the more I found, the more sick I felt. He hadn't married me out of love. He married me out of strategy. And now, thanks to my father's foresight, Brent was the one who had been outplayed. But court wasn't over. Judge Ellison leaned forward again. There's also the matter of potential fraud. Ms. Foster, do you have supporting evidence of coercion or manipulation regarding asset transfers? I nodded slowly. Yes, Your Honor. And I brought recordings. Brent's face turned pale. He had no idea what was coming next. Brent looked like a man watching his life slip through his fingers. That arrogant sparkle in his eyes? Gone. Replaced by twitchy brows and clenched fists as Judge Ellison adjusted his glasses. Recordings? He asked. My lawyer, Catherine Mendez, stood and approached the judge's bench with a flash drive. Your Honor, the audio files you'll hear were recorded in Ms. Foster's home. Legally, on shared property. The conversations are between Mr. Foster and a third party named Devin Moore. Judge Ellison nodded. Admissible. Proceed. Brent's attorney jumped up. Your Honor, we object. The privacy. You'll have your chance to respond, Ms. Bishop, the judge interrupted. Let's hear the first file. The bailiff plugged the drive into a speaker system. The courtroom filled with Brent's voice, loud and unmistakable. She doesn't have a clue, he laughed. Leah's just a sentimental little schoolteacher. Signed everything I handed her. Even used her dad's land to secure the mortgage. When we're done, I walk away with the house, the equity, and she gets a pat on the back. A pause. Then more laughter. Honestly, it's pathetic. She still thinks I married her for love. Bless her heart. The air in the courtroom turned icy. I didn't look at Brent. I kept my gaze on the judge, but I could feel Brent shrinking beside me. His jaw flexed. His hand twitched like he wanted to throw something. Judge Ellison sat still, expression unreadable. There's more, Your Honor, Catherine said. Additional recordings show Mr. Foster knowingly concealed financial intentions and manipulated Ms. Foster into signing away rights to inherited property. Another clip played. Brent again. I got her to sign it over by telling her it was just mortgage paperwork. She didn't even read it. All that land's under my name now. Hell, she doesn't even know how valuable it is. When the audio stopped, there was a heavy silence. Do you deny this is your voice, Mr. Foster? The judge asked sharply. Brent stammered. I was joking. It was locker room talk. I didn't mean. You didn't mean to manipulate your wife into signing over her inheritance? Catherine cut in, calm but deadly. Because that's exactly what it sounds like. His lawyer placed a hand on his arm, trying to calm him, but the damage was done. Judge Ellison leaned back in his chair, lips pressed into a line. This court takes claims of fraud seriously, Mr. Foster, especially when they're supported by evidence as direct as this. Brent finally turned to me. His expression wasn't just anger now, it was panic. Leah, come on. You're not really going to let this get ugly, are you? I'm not letting anything get ugly, I said, my voice clear. You did. I had been silent for years. Ignored, dismissed, laughed at. But now I had a voice, and everyone was finally listening. Brent shifted uncomfortably in his seat as Judge Ellison scribbled a few notes. The audio evidence had hit like a wrecking ball, and no matter how much Brent squirmed, he couldn't rebuild what had just been torn down. His cocky posture from earlier, gone. His shoulders slumped, his face pale, and even Carla, his attorney, looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. The court will take a brief recess, the judge finally said. We'll reconvene in 30 minutes to address the matter of asset division and potential fraud consequences. The gavel tapped once. Everyone rose. As soon as we stepped into the hallway, Brent was on my heels. Leah, wait. I didn't stop walking. He grabbed my arm gently, trying to reel me in with that same silky voice he used when convincing me to sign away my rights. Look, maybe I messed up, okay? But we don't have to do this. You're better than this. I turned to him slowly. I used to think so too. But you taught me something important, Brent. Being better doesn't mean being silent. His mask cracked. You're going to ruin me. No, I said. You did that to yourself. Catherine, my attorney, stepped between us. We'll see you back in court, Mr. Foster. Back in the conference room, Catherine sat me down with a calm that steadied my nerves. You did great, but it's not over. The judge is fair, but fraud cases in divorce court can go either way depending on how the prenup holds up. We'll push to have it voided under fraudulent inducement. What if he still walks away with my dad's land? I whispered. We won't let that happen, she said firm. The trust and land were never truly transferred. I found inconsistencies in how Brent filed the property claim. He thought he owned it, but legally he never did. My chest tightened with a blend of anxiety and relief. For the first time, I saw Brent for what he really was, a manipulator. A man who built his security by dismantling mine. And I realized, this wasn't just about divorce. This was about reclaiming everything he tried to erase, my confidence, my identity, and the legacy my father worked his whole life to leave behind. When we returned to the courtroom, Judge Ellison addressed the room like he was ready to hand out justice. This court has reviewed the evidence, he began. The audio recordings clearly demonstrate an intent to deceive and manipulate. Mr. Foster, the prenuptial agreement is hereby declared null and void on the grounds of fraud and failure to disclose material facts. Brent flinched. Furthermore, the judge continued, all properties tied to the trust, including the undeveloped land in Carter County, shall remain the sole possession of Ms. Foster. Mr. Foster shall have no legal claim. I felt the tears press at the corners of my eyes, but not from sadness. For the first time in years, I was finally getting everything back. Brent looked like he had been punched in the stomach. His jaw slack, fists clenched. He stared at the judge as if waiting for him to laugh and say it was all a big joke. But this wasn't a joke. This was justice. The trust is protected under Tennessee estate law, Judge Ellison repeated. And since it was established prior to the marriage and remained legally separate, it is not subject to marital division. Brent's lawyer stood, trying to salvage what she could. Your Honor, if I may. You may not. The judge cut her off sharply. We'll now proceed with division of remaining marital assets. And in light of Mr. Foster's deception, this court is inclined to favor Mrs. Foster in the distribution. Brent sat down hard, like the wind had been knocked from his chest. I didn't gloat, I didn't need to. The silence around him was louder than any revenge speech I could have made. All I had to do was watch him sit in the very trap he had built for me. While Judge Ellison and the attorneys reviewed paperwork, my mind drifted back to a conversation I had with my father when I was 16. We were sitting on the porch of our old house, watching the sun dip behind the hills. I had just gotten dumped by my high school crush and cried for hours. You're not broken, Leah, Dad had said. You're learning. At the time, it felt like a cliché. Now, it felt like prophecy. Brent leaned toward his attorney, whispering frantically. She shook her head, lips pressed in a thin line. It was clear she saw what he refused to accept. This was over, and he had lost. Catherine handed me a pen and pointed to the new proposed agreement. You used my father's memory as leverage. You called me boring and ordinary, and tried to take everything he left me. I was just lost, he stammered. I was under pressure. The job, the expectations from my family. No, I interrupted. Don't blame your family. Don't blame your job. You did this. You chose greed over love. And now you want sympathy because you didn't get away with it? He looked down. For the first time, maybe ever, Brent Foster looked ashamed. I thought I was doing the smart thing, he muttered. Marrying someone grounded, kind, simple. I stepped toward him, keeping my voice steady. You didn't marry me because you loved me. You married me because you thought I'd never outshine you, that I'd always need you. His eyes met mine. I thought I could grow to love you, that it wouldn't matter. It did matter, I snapped. And you knew it. Every time you dismissed me, every time you smiled in public and tore me down in private. You knew exactly what you were doing. Brent reached out, but I stepped back. No, don't touch me. Not anymore. Leah, I'm sorry. No, you're not, I said, cutting him off. You're sorry you lost. Sorry the woman you called just a teacher ended up being worth more than you ever imagined. Not just in money, but in heart. His lips parted, but nothing came out. I forgave you a long time ago, Brent, I said softly. But I don't owe you anything. Not another minute. Not another explanation. We're done. I turned and walked to my car, leaving him standing in the wind, his world unraveling. As I pulled out of the lot, I didn't cry. I didn't feel empty. I felt whole, like I had just shut a door behind me that was never meant to stay open. My phone buzzed as I hit the road. It was from Catherine. Just got confirmation. The trust has been fully secured. The land too. It's all yours. I smiled, tears pricking the corners of my eyes. Not because of the money, but because I finally understood what my father had always seen in me, even when I couldn't see it myself. The drive home from the courthouse felt like a cleansing wind. I rolled the windows down, letting the autumn air sweep through my car like a rebirth. Brent was finally behind me. The lies, the manipulation, the years of shrinking myself to fit inside his world. Over. When I pulled into my driveway, the house felt different. It wasn't just bricks and shingles anymore. It was mine. Not his, not ours. Mine. And thanks to the judge's ruling, I wouldn't be forced to sell it. The trust, the land, and now the home, all safe. I stepped inside, kicked off my shoes, and made my way to the old cedar chest in the corner of the living room. It used to belong to my father. After he passed, I brought it with me. Brent never paid it much attention. He always said it smelled like the past. But to me, it smelled like home. I opened it slowly, the creak of the hinges echoing in the quiet house. Inside, beneath some folded flannel shirts and faded photo albums, was a worn envelope with my name on it. I froze. Leah, open only when you truly need it. Dad, I don't know how I missed it before. My hands shook as I carefully unfolded the yellowing paper. My father's handwriting was neat, deliberate, just like he was. My sweet girl, if you're reading this, I figure something's happened. Maybe you're struggling, maybe you're lost, or maybe someone made you feel like you're not enough. But let me remind you of something you need to hear, something I've told you since you were little. You were born with your mother's fire and my stubborn heart. That means you're not just strong, you're unbreakable. I know I didn't have much to leave you, but I planned for this. That land? It's more than just dirt and weeds. It's security. It's freedom. And the trust? That's my final promise to you, that no matter what, you will always have something no one can take from you. If someone tried, I'm sorry. But I know you'll rise. You always do. Never forget your worth. Leah, not ever. Love always, Dad. By the time I finished reading, tears streaked down my cheeks. Not from grief, but from gratitude. All this time, I'd been fighting to reclaim something Brent tried to steal. But this letter made me realize I never truly lost it. My father had always been one step ahead, quietly building a net around me I never saw. I folded the letter back with care and placed it in a frame. It belonged somewhere visible now, not buried under years of forgotten memories. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the porch, and watched the stars rise over the hills. My future was no longer clouded by someone else's lies. It was mine. And tomorrow, I'd drive out to the land my father left me. The same land Brent said was worthless. Only now I knew what was really beneath it. Oil, gas, and legacy. The kind of legacy that changes everything. The next morning, I woke up early with a strange kind of peace humming in my chest. For the first time in years, I had no one to tiptoe around, no passive-aggressive comments to brace for, no empty apologies to decode. Just me, a packed thermos of coffee, and a road trip out to Carter County. The sun had barely broken the horizon when I pulled onto the gravel road that led to the land. It had been years since I'd been out here. Last time, Brent stayed in the car, complaining about bugs and mud, uninterested in anything that didn't involve profit margins or property flips. But now, standing at the edge of the field, I finally saw it for what it truly was. Not barren, not useless, not just land. This was my father's love letter to the future. Acres of golden prairie stretching out toward the hills, an old barn at the edge, its roof sagging but proud. Birds circled overhead. The silence felt sacred. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. I could almost hear him. It's not about what it is now, sweetheart. It's what it can become. The appraisal papers Catherine had sent me confirmed what the energy company had been sniffing around for. The land sat on top of a natural gas deposit estimated to be worth over $12 million. And the offers had already begun to roll in. But I wasn't in a rush. Because for the first time, I didn't need the money to prove anything. Not to Brent. Not to the world. And not to myself. My phone buzzed as I walked the perimeter. It was an unknown number, but the area code matched the oil company Catherine mentioned. Ms. Foster? A man said, polite and professional. This is Alan Pierce from Genesis Energy. We'd like to formally express interest in purchasing the mineral rights to your property. We're prepared to offer. I stopped him gently. I appreciate the interest, Mr. Pierce, but I'm going to need some time. I have a legacy to protect. There was a pause, then a chuckle. Understood, ma'am. Take all the time you need. We'll be here. After hanging up, I spotted something near the barn. An old wooden sign, sun-bleached and weathered. It had been knocked over by the wind, half covered in brush. I dusted it off and smiled. Mitchell Hill, EST 1987. My father had named the land after our family. Quietly, proudly, I stood there for a long while, staring out over everything he built, everything Brent tried to steal, and made a decision. I wasn't selling it all. Not yet. I'd develop a portion and set aside the rest for something greater. A scholarship fund. A foundation for young women who felt small, forgotten, or unworthy, just like I once did. Because the best revenge isn't in proving someone wrong. It's in building something so right, so lasting, that they become a forgotten footnote in your story. And Brent Foster? He was now just that. 6 months later, my life didn't just look different, it felt different. Empowered. Whole. The land in Carter County, once mocked by Brent as just a patch of dirt, was now the cornerstone of something much bigger. After careful research and long talks with Catherine and a development advisor, I sold a portion of the mineral rights, not the land itself, just the rights, to Genesis Energy for $5.8 million. The rest, I kept. Some said I was foolish for not cashing out entirely. But I wasn't building for fast profits. I was building for purpose. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. With part of the proceeds, I launched the Mitchell Rising Foundation in memory of my father. Its mission was simple: empower underprivileged young women to pursue education, leadership, and self-worth. Scholarships, mentorships, summer programs for teenage girls who felt like their voices didn't matter. Girls like I once was. The launch event was held in the very same field Brent called worthless. The barn had been restored with a fresh coat of red paint and string lights hung from the rafters. Local reporters covered the story, inspired by the teacher-turned-founder who quietly inherited millions and turned it into something more. During my speech, I held up the framed letter from my dad. He taught me that legacy isn't about wealth, it's about what you leave behind in people. I said, I thought I had to prove myself worthy of love and acceptance. But it turns out I already was. And now I want every young girl to know she is, too. The applause that followed was warm, heartfelt, and honest. Nothing like the forced smiles I used to endure at Brent's networking events. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, I stood at the edge of the property with Catherine. "You've come a long way," she said, sipping sweet tea. "Your dad would be proud." I nodded. "I think he already was." She gave me a knowing smile. "And Brent? Bankrupt?" I replied without a hint of satisfaction, just truth. "He invested everything in a tech startup that collapsed. Filed for Chapter 13 last month. Tried to call me a few times, but I blocked the number." "He was a lesson," Catherine said. "And you passed with honors." I laughed. "I guess he was. But deep down, I knew Brent wasn't the ending of my story. He was just the storm I had to weather to become the woman I was meant to be. Strong, resilient, rooted." As stars blinked into the twilight sky, I sat on the porch of the old barn, wrapped in a blanket, watching girls from the first Mitchell rising cohort laugh and dance under the lights. They didn't know the whole story behind this place. But they didn't have to. All they needed to know was that someone once believed they were worthy of more. And now they believed it too. The best revenge isn't wealth. It's healing. It's growth. It's legacy. And mine was only just beginning.